Try to learn English or try learning English. Which of these sentences is correct? Well, the thing is, they're both correct, but their meaning is a bit different. In this video, we're going to learn about verbs in English that can be followed by a full infinitive or a gerund, and whose meaning changes depending on whether we use the infinitive or the gerund. You'll find this video especially useful if you are an intermediate, upper intermediate, or an advanced student. As always, we'll first talk about each verb I've got for you and give you examples and tips on how to use them, and then I have a little exercise for you where you'll be able to test your knowledge from this video. So without further ado, let's come back to our first two examples. Try to learn English and try learning English. What's the difference here? In general, if we tell somebody to try to do something, we want them to make an effort. As a teacher, for example, I can say to my students, try to learn English every day. My wife often tells me, Magic, try to keep your room tidy every day. And I never do that, but what my wife would like me to do is to make an effort to keep the room tidy. So that's try with a full infinitive. And what about the ing? The ing with try is used when we want to give somebody friendly advice. Imagine that a friend of yours is telling you they have a problem and they can't sleep very well. Now, as a good friend, you want to give them friendly advice. And while there are many different structures we can use for this purpose in English, try doing something is one of them as well. So for instance, we could say, try drinking a glass of hot milk before going to bed. Or try reading something boring before you go to sleep. In here, try an ing works as a friendly piece of advice, an experiment, if you will. Now let's have a look at some more verbs that change the meaning of the sentence depending on the verb form you use after the verb. And the next one on my list is stop. So there's a big difference actually between stop to do something and stop doing something. If you stop to do something, you basically take a break from your main activity to do something else and then come back to what you were doing. For example, I take my two little children to school every day, and on my way back home, I stop to have a coffee at my favorite bar. Notice that in here, stop to have a coffee is used in the meaning of taking a little break from what I was doing before. I'm walking back home and then I stop to have a coffee. On the other hand, if we used ing after the verb stop, it would mean completely stopping the activity we were doing. For example, I could say, I stopped drinking coffee because it made me anxious. Basically here, I'm saying that I completely stopped my habit of drinking coffee. Stop and ing means completely quitting something. Let's move on to the next verb. And the next one I wanted to talk about is mean. Now, mean followed by an infinitive and mean followed by a gerund have two completely different meanings. You're probably familiar with mean followed by ing. It simply talks about the meaning of something. For instance, learning English means studying every day. In here, studying every day is an essential part of learning English. So this is basically the meaning of mean and ing. But what about mean and the full infinitive? What does it mean if you say, I mean to do something. Well, it means that you have an intention of doing this thing. For instance, if I say, I mean to buy all my Christmas presents this week, I'm basically saying that I intend to. My intention is to buy all those presents this week. I'm not talking about the meaning of anything. I'm talking about what I intend to do. Often, people use mean with the full infinitive to say that they wanted to do something and they didn't. For example, I meant to ask you this the other day. This basically means that you wanted to ask that person about something and you didn't. I meant to ask you this. It was my intention to do it. Let's have a look at another verb. And in here, let's focus on regret. Again, regret to do something and regret doing something are two vastly different meanings. If we use the ing after regret, we are referring to a past action that we feel sorry about. In other words, an action we are regretting. For example, I regret not traveling more when I was young. Or, she regrets telling him her secret. Notice that in here, despite the fact that regret is used in the present, the sentence actually has a past meaning. To regret doing something means to have regrets about something that happened in the past. So, she regrets telling him her secret is about the fact that she told him the secret she had sometime in the past, and now she's feeling sorry about that because it was a mistake. On the other hand, if you use the full infinitive after regret, the meaning changes completely, and we are now talking about the present or the future. This is a structure we very often use to give somebody bad news. For example, I regret to tell you that your application has been rejected. I regret to tell you that you have failed the exam. So regret to do something has a very different meaning from regret doing something. While we're feeling sorry in both situations, regret doing something refers to our personal past experiences we feel sorry about, and regret to do something refers to the present or the immediate future. Now let's have a look at another verb. And this one is slightly more advanced. Why? Well, because normally when you see like, teachers will tell you that in order to use like correctly, it must be followed by a gerund. And that's generally right if you were talking about your hobbies and preferences. For instance, I can say, I like skiing. I like reading. And in here, skiing and reading are my favorite ways to pass the time. But you can also follow the verb like with a full infinitive. And if you do that, you're not actually talking about your hobbies. You're talking about a tendency or a habit that you have. For example, I like to read the news first thing in the morning. This doesn't mean that reading the news is a hobby that I have. No, I'm talking about a tendency, a habit that I have. You can also use like with a full infinitive in situations when you do something because you feel it's good for you. For example, I like to eat broccoli from time to time. Is eating broccoli a hobby that I have or a pastime that I engage in? No, God, no. It's just that I know that eating broccoli from time to time is healthy, so it's good for me. And that's why I'm going to say I like to eat broccoli from time to time. Again, I'm not speaking about something that I really like or enjoy. I'm speaking about something that I know to be good for me. And speaking of verbs that express preference, let's have a look at how the meaning of hate changes when we follow it with a gerund or a full infinitive. So what's the difference? Again, you were probably told by your teachers that hate needs to be followed by ing. And that's true, again, if you're talking about things that you really dislike doing. For example, I hate listening to very loud music. Or, I hate doing exercise in the morning. These are things that I really dislike doing. On the other hand, if I use the full infinitive after hate and say I hate to do something, it basically means that I feel sorry about what I'm doing, but I have no other choice. For example, I hate to tell you that we have no more time. Or, I hate to tell you this, but we're closing down. In both of these situations, I'm not speaking about things I dislike or about my preferences. I'm simply saying I am sorry to tell you this, but I have to tell you. Now, our next verb that can be followed by a gerund or a full infinitive is remember. And again, here the meaning is completely different. If you say, I don't remember doing something, it means you have no memory of doing this thing. For example, I went to Paris with my family a few years ago, and we visited many different places. My wife has a great memory for every place that we visited, and she often tells me, do you remember when we went to that little place in Paris? But my memory for the places we visited is, let's say, limited, and I often don't have any memory of visiting a certain place. So I will say, I really don't remember going there, or I really don't remember being there. I'm using the ing after remember simply because I have no memory of that action. On the other hand, when you use the full infinitive after remember, you are telling the person not to forget to do something. Remember to buy the milk. Remember to save the file. Remember to phone my father. In all of these cases, we're telling the other person not to forget to do something. And speaking of forget, it's our next verb that can be followed by a gerund or a full infinitive. If you say, forget doing something, it basically means that you have no memory of the action you did. If I told you, I'll never forget visiting Paris for the first time in my life, it means I will always have the memory of visiting Paris. The other day I was working on an important presentation when suddenly I got a phone call. It was my wife telling me that my little daughter was feeling sick and I had to pick her up from school. Not thinking a lot about it, I simply put my shoes and coat on and went to pick my daughter up. What I forgot about was that I hadn't plugged in my laptop and it was running out of battery. So by the time we came back home with my little daughter, my computer had switched itself off. And I was really stressed because I was convinced that the file I had been working on was lost. However, after plugging the computer in and opening it again, I realized that I had pressed save just before going to get my daughter from her school. In other words, I had forgotten saving the file. This means that the file was actually saved, but I didn't remember doing that action of saving the file. I probably did that in such an automatic way that I simply didn't remember even doing it. I forgot saving the file, but the file miraculously was there. On the other hand, if you forget to do something, it simply means that you didn't remember to do it and it's not done. So fortunately for me, I forgot saving the file. If I had forgotten to save it, I would have lost it, because forget to do something means we didn't do it. Now I've got two more verbs for you, and both of them will be quite surprising. Let's start with need. Did you know that we can use need with a full infinitive, just like you always do, and a gerund? Need to do something is a basic structure that we use in situations when we have a duty or an obligation to do something. There is, for example, no difference between saying I have to do it or I need to do it. Both of these sentences are synonyms, and it basically means, yeah, I have a duty or an obligation to do something. But what about need doing? If you use this structure in reference to something else, it means that it requires an action. For example, my plants at home need watering every week. If I enter my children's room, I'll probably look around and say in a very stern voice, "This room needs cleaning." Not that I ever do. It's probably my room that needs cleaning in the first place. So in both of these situations, you can use need and gerund in order to say that something, the subject of the sentence, requires something else. Another verb that works in a very similar way is want. And again, here you may be very surprised that, aside from the classic want to do, we can also say want doing. Now, of course, want to do something is the basic structure we learn when we start learning English, and it expresses our intention to do something. I want to go there, I want to eat this, I want to have a glass of water. But what about want doing? This is similar to need doing, but we generally use it when we want to be a little bit humorous about what we are saying. For example, imagine that your partner's shoes are dirty. You can then say, "These shoes want cleaning." And of course, it's not the intention that the shoes have. It's simply to say that the shoes require cleaning. I could also do the same for my children's bedroom and say, "Guys, this room wants ordering." The difference between "this room needs ordering" and "this room wants ordering" is that the other sentence is a little bit humorous. I'm being ironic when I say it. This is a more advanced grammar structure, and if you are uncomfortable using it, don't worry about it. But be aware that sometimes you will hear an ing after want, and that's correct. Now, before we move on to the final part of this lesson, I just wanted to let you know that if you really want to improve your English, you should consider joining my online learning community, Your English Upgrade. Your English Upgrade is a wonderful place if you want to practice grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and improve your overall confidence in learning English. You can join me on 2 live weekly webinars where we'll be studying English together, and you'll have access to a variety of resources and courses on the platform. These, by the way, are being added to the platform every week, so it's basically a growing learning community which you can be a part of. Apart from that, you'll get access to a great supportive community forum where you'll be able to ask me any question you like about learning English. And of course, you'll be able to download the pronunciation files and the PDFs that accompany this video and any other video that I make for YouTube. The link to the community is in the description. I hope to see you there. In any case, let's go to our exercise. For each of the verbs that we have studied today, I'm going to show you two sentences. One of the sentences is going to need the missing verb in the form of a gerund, while the other is going to need a full infinitive. I'll give you time to think about what form you need, and then we'll listen and check. Ready? Let's have a look. I stopped smoking a few months ago for health reasons. In this sentence, we're talking about quitting smoking. So stop plus ing. I stopped for a quick coffee on my way to work. In here, we're using the full infinitive after stop because we're talking about taking a break from something. Have a look at the next one. I remember meeting him at the party last year. In here, we're talking about having a memory of doing something. Remember plus ing. Remember to bring your ID when you come to pick up the tickets. In here, we're telling somebody not to forget to do something. Remember plus the full infinitive. Let's have a look at the next one. I forgot to call my friend on her birthday yesterday. In here, we're saying we didn't remember to do something. Forget to do. I'll never forget visiting Japan for the first time. In here, we're talking about always having the memory of something. I'll never forget visiting. Forget plus gerund. Let's have a look at another pair of sentences. John tried cooking sushi, but he decided it was too difficult. In here, we're using try and gerund because John did that as an experiment, and then he simply decided it was not for him. They tried to do it really hard, but they couldn't succeed. In here, we're using the infinitive after try because the sentence implies a lot of effort. Try to do something means put effort into what you are doing. Let's look at the next pair. I hate queuing at the supermarket. Well, there are actually very few people who enjoy standing in a long line waiting to pay for their products. In here, hate is used with an ing because we are talking about something we really don't like doing. I hate to tell you this, but it's raining. In here, we're using hate and the infinitive because we feel sorry that we have to give the other person bad news. I'm sorry to tell you this, but I have to. I hate to tell you that it's raining. Let's look at another pair of sentences. I meant to go to the gym this afternoon. In here, we're using the full infinitive with meant because we're talking about something we wanted to do, our intention. Mean to do something expresses our intention of doing that thing. Finishing the project on time means working a lot. In here, we're using mean and a gerund because working hard or working a lot forms an essential part of the whole process. This is what finishing the project on time means. It means working a lot. Let's look at another pair of sentences. I like reading books, especially thrillers. In here, we're using the classic like plus gerund because we're talking about a hobby or an interest that we have. My dad liked to read a chapter before going to bed. In here, I'm using like and the full infinitive because I'm not actually talking about a hobby that my dad used to have. I'm saying that he had a habit of doing that. Every time he went to bed, he would take his book and he would read a chapter. He liked to read a chapter before going to bed. Let's look at another couple of sentences. They regret not visiting the museum while they were in the city. In here, we're using regret with ing because we're speaking about the past. This is a little bit difficult to remember sometimes, but it's worth bearing in mind that if you use regret and ing, you're talking about a situation, a past situation that you feel sorry about. They regret not visiting the museum while they were in the city. I regret to tell you your application has been unsuccessful. In here, we're basically saying, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you. So we're referring either to the present or to the immediate future. Regret plus full infinitive. 2 more pairs of sentences to go. Let's have a look. I need to buy groceries before the store closes. In here, we're simply talking about a duty or an obligation that we have, something that we really need to do. The classic need plus the full infinitive. On the other hand, this window needs cleaning. It's all covered in dust. In here, I'm saying that the window requires cleaning, and in that meaning, we need to use need and a gerund. And our last pair of sentences. Have a look. Well, you probably won't have any problem with the first one. I want to go shopping with you. It's my intention to do that. I want to do. On the other hand, your room wants cleaning. In here, I'm saying that your room requires cleaning, but I'm being a little bit humorous about it. It's a mild joke when you use want and a gerund. Well, I hope you feel more confident now when it comes to using gerunds and infinitives in different meanings when they follow the same verb. And if you have any more energy to practice English, why don't you check out one of these 2 videos and I'll see you right there. Take care.